Your capacity for pain is the exact measure of your capacity for joy. The same depth in you that collapses under grief is the depth that expands into ecstasy. You've been trying to close one door while keeping the other wide open, and that's why your emotional life feels shallow. By the end of this, you'll understand why your darkest feelings are the very architecture that makes your brightest ones possible. The Hermetic tradition, thousands of years old, laid this out in a single principle: polarity. Everything has its pair of opposites: hot and cold, light and dark, love and fear. But the teaching goes further than most people realize. These opposites are identical in nature, they differ only in degree. Heat and cold aren't two separate forces battling each other. They're one force, temperature, expressing itself along a single spectrum. There's no point on a thermometer where heat ends and cold begins. The boundary is imaginary. Your mind draws it. Sorrow and joy work the same way. One feeling, one capacity, one depth, measured from different ends. This is where most people misunderstand their own emotional life. You've been taught that negative emotions are problems to solve, obstacles to happiness. Something went wrong, and the sadness is proof. So you build strategies to avoid the low end of the spectrum. You distract. You numb. You keep things light. And it works for a while. The sorrow gets quieter, but so does everything else. The music that used to make your chest ache with beauty stops hitting the same way. The sunset becomes pleasant instead of breathtaking. You trade the lows for a muted beige middle, safe, comfortable, and quietly devastating. You felt this, that season where nothing was technically wrong, but nothing felt vivid either. You scroll through your days like someone watching their own life through a window. The food was fine, the conversations were fine, everything was fine. And fine started to feel like its own kind of suffering, one you couldn't even name because there was nothing to point at. That flatness is the cost of polarity denied. The Kybalion puts it directly: the degree to which you can experience one pole determines the degree to which you can experience its opposite. Compress the range on one end, and the other end compresses with it. You can't selectively numb. Every attempt to eliminate sorrow removes an equal measure of joy. The instrument is the same. You're just refusing to let it play certain notes and wondering why the music sounds thin. So, what does this mean in practice? It means the grief you've been running from carries information you need. When sorrow arrives, real, bone-deep sorrow, your first instinct is to treat it as an emergency, to fix it, medicate it, argue with it, scroll past it. But within the Hermetic framework, that sorrow is showing you something about your own depth. A person incapable of grief is equally incapable of devotion. The ache you feel when something precious is lost reveals the exact magnitude of your ability to love. Those are the same muscles. Think about the people you admire most, the ones whose presence feels like standing near a fire. They're rarely the ones who've had easy lives. They carry a weight you can sense. Their laughter has a different texture because it exists alongside everything they've survived. Their joy isn't naive. It comes from someone who has visited the other end of the spectrum and chose to stay open anyway. That openness is the whole game. And here's where the principle cuts even deeper. Polarity doesn't just describe your emotions, it describes your capacity for spiritual transformation. The Hermetic teachings say that an adept can transmute along the poles, can consciously shift their state from one degree to another. You can move from fear toward courage, from hate toward love, from sorrow toward joy. But you can only move along a pole that exists within you. You can only transmute what you have the range to feel. A person who has never allowed themselves to feel deep sorrow has no pole to transmute. They're stuck in the middle, mistaking numbness for peace. Real inner work means expanding the range, then learning to navigate it. This is where most spiritual teachings get watered down. Someone reads about raising your vibration and interprets it as avoid all negative feelings, think positive, suppress anything heavy. That approach shrinks the instrument. Genuine transmutation requires you to first fully inhabit the feeling you're in, to go into the sorrow completely, without resistance, and then consciously shift your position along the pole. The shift happens through awareness, through presence, through the disciplined choice to feel everything without being consumed by it. The key word is through. You move through sorrow toward joy. There's no shortcut that bypasses the territory. A practical way to work with this: the next time a heavy emotion arrives, pause before you react. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what is this showing me about my depth? Sit with the feeling for 5 minutes. Breathe into it. Notice where it lives in your body, the heaviness in your chest, the tightness behind your eyes, the weight in your stomach. Let it be fully present without narrating a story about why it's there. You're building capacity. You're stretching the instrument. Every moment you spend fully present with a difficult emotion, you're simultaneously expanding your ability to feel its opposite with equal intensity. The Kybalion describes this as mental transmutation, the art of changing mental states by working with the principle of polarity. A master of this art doesn't avoid negative states. They develop such intimate familiarity with the entire spectrum that they can move along it at will. They've mapped the terrain. They know what deep sorrow feels like in their body, in their thoughts, in their energy. And because they know it so thoroughly, they can recognize the moment when the pole begins to turn. When sorrow, fully felt, naturally begins its arc back towards something luminous. You've experienced this already, even if you didn't have language for it. A long cry that suddenly breaks into laughter. A period of mourning that cracks open into gratitude so fierce it takes your breath away. The deepest conversations you've ever had probably happened at 2 a.m. after someone let their guard down enough to be devastated in front of you. Something alchemical lives in that willingness to go all the way to the bottom. The bottom is where the reversal begins. Now, a genuine challenge to this idea. If embracing sorrow expands capacity, doesn't that risk glorifying suffering? Doesn't it become an excuse to wallow, to stay stuck in pain and call it spiritual work? The distinction matters. Wallowing is circling the same spot without presence. Genuine transmutation requires consciousness. You're fully feeling the emotion while maintaining the awareness that you are the one feeling it, that you contain the emotion rather than the emotion containing you. The moment you lose that awareness, you're identified with the sorrow rather than moving through it. Polarity works when you remain the traveler, moving along the spectrum, aware that both poles exist within you simultaneously. The sorrow doesn't define you any more than the joy does. You're the spectrum itself. This understanding changes your relationship with every difficult emotion you'll ever face. Anxiety reveals the depth of your caring. Loneliness reveals your capacity for connection. Frustration reveals the size of your vision bumping against current limitations. Each negative emotion is a message from the other pole, saying this is how much you can feel, this is how deep the channel runs. The only question is whether you'll let the full current flow or keep building dams. Most people spend decades building dams, carefully constructed walls against specific feelings, entire personalities built around avoiding the things that once hurt them, and each dam reduces the flow in both directions. By midlife, many people have engineered themselves into a narrow channel where nothing can hurt them too badly and nothing can move them too deeply. They call it maturity. They call it being realistic. The Hermetic tradition calls it a tragedy, a being with the capacity for the full spectrum, voluntarily confined to the middle octave. The work of reclaiming your range starts small, one feeling at a time. The next time sadness visits, welcome it like a guest who carries a gift you need. Stay at the table with it, let it speak, and notice, really notice, what happens on the other side. The joy that follows fully experienced sorrow has a different quality than the joy that comes from avoidance. It has roots, it has weight. It has the solidity of something earned rather than something borrowed. Your emotional depth is a single well. Every attempt to fill in the bottom, to make the well shallower so you never have to descend too far, removes the very depth that allows living water to collect. The well goes as deep as you let it go. The water rises to the same level. Tonight or tomorrow morning, find 5 minutes of stillness. Ask yourself honestly, where have I been refusing to feel? What emotion have I walled off to protect myself? And then, gently, with your full awareness, let the wall thin. Just slightly. You'll feel the discomfort first. Stay with it. Because on the other side of that discomfort, waiting with equal intensity, is everything you've been missing. The principle of polarity guarantees it. Your sorrow and your joy share the same roots. Drink from the same water. Grow in the same soil. The only thing left is to stop pulling up one to protect the other and let the whole garden grow.